Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. Today we're talking industrial real estate. Please welcome my next guest is Larry Callahan. Larry's CEO of Pattillo Industrial Real Estate. Larry, thanks for joining us in Studio One.
Glad to be with you again, Michael.
You know, Larry, it seems like the growth of the industrial market has just been incredible. And what do you expect moving forward for industrial real estate, and what are some of the factors that are impacting it?
Well, the big story continues to be e-commerce. That's the part that everybody's focused on, and it is huge. People are seeing the impact of it, and you're seeing some numbers like this. The e-commerce sales grew about 11% in 2016, and the same-store sales in department stores dropped about 6%.
Wow.
So there's clearly a transformation going on, and you know, everybody knows it because when you come home at the end of the day, you're seeing, you know, UPS or FedEx or somebody has dropped boxes on your front porch that, you know, your significant other has ordered, and they're showing up day in and day out. But it's a huge shift, and there's a lot of activity, and everybody's talking about it. It's not the only thing that's going on in industrial real estate, but it is certainly the part that's most visible, and it's given rise to the very large buildings. The most active segment of industrial real estate for the last several years has been buildings in the million square foot range. And a million square feet, not everybody knows what a million square feet looks like. It sounds like a lot, but what it looks like is about 20 football fields under one roof.
Wow.
And that's a lot of space under one roof. And these places are beehives of activities. They're a little different building than, you know, the industrial building of
And how many of those are single tenant?
Virtually all of them are single tenant buildings. And by the time they get around to deciding they want to go somewhere, they're in a big hurry to get in. And what that is giving rise to is a lot of speculative million square foot buildings going up in the market, and there's, you know, a bunch of them out there. So it is one of the big drivers that's going on. So it's a huge thing. It's not the only thing. There's another thing that I think
Before you move on to that, let's talk about that for a moment. A question I have for you is kind of the last mile. I mean, so you can't build these million square foot buildings really close to these major cities, right? And in a lot of cases. So is there also some industrial growth involving the last mile, the buildings closer?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the next trend. So I think great question. The million square foot deals are still going to be out there, and the infrastructure for serving regions are there. But that last mile is difficult to serve. If you've got a building that has been set up and it's a million square feet and it's going to serve a, you know, two-state area, a 400-mile radius, which is what a lot of them do, it's difficult when somebody orders something in the morning. If they order dog food in the morning and they want to get it that afternoon, it's hard to get it from 400 miles away and get the whole processing. So what a lot of the companies are doing is putting smaller distribution centers closer to where populations are. And that's the next trend that's happening, because everybody kind of thinks that, you know, Amazon doesn't do anything but million square foot buildings, but they are actively building and developing a network of smaller buildings that are designed for that last mile.
And what ranges are these buildings in size?
You know, I don't know if I know enough about it to know their whole range of things, but I have seen buildings that the e-commerce companies, you know, such as Amazon, or are pursuing in that 200,000 to 300,000 range. Whereas for years, you know, their whole strategy seemed to be focused on, let's build out 50, 60 million square foot buildings all around the country, and they did that. But now you're seeing them coming into different places, them and others in the e-commerce world, coming into a smaller building. Now, you know, a 200,000 square foot building is still, you know, 4 or 5 football fields under a roof, but but that is more of those type buildings is what you're going to see, I think, as one of the trends here in the next year or so.
Well, where are you putting a building that size, Larry, that is close to a major city like that, in a dead mall or something? I mean,
well, we've actually seen that. And that's a good point. But it may not be a mall; it may be a strip center. If you think about some of these strip centers, and clearly retail has been challenged here for quite a while, and there were many strip centers that went under, retail strip centers where it just didn't work. and they shut the whole thing down. Well, they're fairly large footprints with a lot of parking there. Some of them can be repurposed, and some of them will be simply knocked down and put back into an industrial use.
But you need quite a bit of acreage for that, right?
You do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at a 1 million square foot building, you're going to need about 100 acres.
Yeah.
Even if it's more of a 200,000 square foot building, you probably need 20 acres or so.
Yeah.
So,
what are some other factors that are impacting industrial real estate, Larry?
well, there's another trend that I think is going on very quietly, which is simply that the scale of business has continued to evolve to a larger size. Economies of scale is what the economists refer to it as, and we've just seen existing customers are at the phase now where we're starting to see expansions of existing buildings, and you're seeing existing customers that are in a 150,000 square foot building needing to move to a 300,000 square foot building because their business has just expanded that much. So I think that is another trend that is fueling a need for more modern buildings, smaller than the 1 million square foot. And I think that's actually been very lacking in many markets in terms of the real estate community putting that out there. The speculative buildings that have been built recently have tended to be in that very large, 800,000, million, depending on which market you're talking about. But they've tended to be there. There have been relatively few people putting up 200,000 square foot new buildings. But there's starting to be a very strong demand for that. And the market we're in right now is simply robust.
Yeah.
And vacancy rates in many markets, not just the market that we operate in. We operate throughout the Southeast, but we're seeing record lows in vacancy rates. And that's a signal to the market that it's time to start putting some new product out there.
Yeah. So do you expect new supply to increase moving forward?
Oh yeah, I mean it's already a robust market with new activity coming out of the ground. Different markets. Our core operation, we're based here in Atlanta. We're seeing record amounts of new construction coming along in Atlanta, and it's been that way for the last couple of years. One of the things that's changing though is we were very cautious coming out of the recession, and everybody rightfully so, and they were probably encouraged by their bankers to be cautious. So most of what was going up was actually build-to-suit buildings. So you'd see activity start to spurt up to a higher level, but it was mostly build-to-suit activity with very cautious move into speculative. Now, take the Atlanta market as an example. The activity that's going on right now is almost 80% is speculative.
Yeah.
And that's a shift, because if you go back a few years ago, it was 60, 70, 75% build-to-suit activity. So we're now maybe the animal spirits in the economy are finally starting to take off. The bulls are getting ready to run.
There you go.
I know you like that term.
That's right. What about a tip, Larry, for a tenant that is going to need industrial space, need to grow, or maybe it's a startup, but a tip for tenants?
Well, we've always encouraged people to think about their expansion, to go after a building where there's a possibility of expansion. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think is kind of shifted in people's thinking is they were always thinking about expanding the warehouse itself, mm-hmm. or the manufacturing plant if it was manufacturing. The thing that they're more and more finding is that they need expansion in their truck courts,
right,
and their parking. And these e-commerce thing, that's one of the things that's so different. The big buildings that they're building are often having to be either build-to-suit or a speculative building that's focused just on e-commerce, because they need so much parking, both for the trucks and for the number of employees that are coming in there. The e-commerce not only has a lot of activity in there, but they also have peaks of activity where they need even more going in there. So the demand for industrial buildings, I think, is going to shift more toward wanting facilities that can expand their truck courts and their parking as much as the building itself.
Right.
So we're seeing bigger footprints now.
Right. All right. That's a good tip. And one of the things I think a lot of people are curious about is a Trump presidency, and what does that mean for the economy? What's it mean for industrial real estate? So stay with us. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. We'll talk about that with Larry Callahan. I'm Michael Bull. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. Stay with us. Hey there, thanks for checking out the Commercial Real Estate Show. Don't miss a video of special interest to you. Be sure to subscribe below. And if you appreciate the videos, be sure and thank our sponsors. There's a link to more information about them in the description. For more videos, podcasts, and articles, check out creshow.com.